All right, folks. I thought I'd do something different tonight. This has been on my mind for a while. I wanted to know, like, what is the? I was wondering, there had to be more to what happened between Shem, Ham, and Japheth up in, as you know, like, uh, it said that God cursed Ham, right? Or they'll say, oh, that he just cursed the son Canaan, whatever. But they'll be like, oh, that's the black people. They would tell you, and but with my research, I found out that the Hamites are actually the Palestinians. Well, the Canaanites. The Canaanites, that descend from Ham are the Palestinians. So, but I always wondered. It said that Japheth. They always use that word that word enlarge. God shall enlarge Japheth, and he shall dwell in the tents of Shem. Or they'll say that it's a blessing on Japheth. But to me, does anybody consider the KKK a blessing, or Nick Fuentes, or white supremacists, or David Duke a blessing? No, they don't seem like a blessing to me. So I'm just wondering, like, with all the different translations, that not saying that the word of God was added to, but I'm wondering, like, if the translations, like when it comes to the translations side of it, like, that they were hiding something, like what really happened between Japheth and Ham. So it was something I always wanted to know. And I asked some questions here, and I think I found some things that were pretty interesting. So I think I'll just go over this right quick. And I haven't really. A lot of this is just live because I haven't really studied some of the stuff, the answers it gave me. So basically I'm sort of like reacting to it too on some of these questions I asked it. I mean, the answers it gave me, right? So the first time I asked, I said, well, let me see. Let me go down here since I'm gonna ask. This is the question I asked it right here. It says, I said, hold up. Let me scroll it. Okay, yeah, here we go. Here's the question. Okay. I asked the AI here. I said, some people claim that it is God dwelling in the tents of Shem using certain translations, not Shem contradicting Japheth's dwelling in there. It does seem like, sorry about the I was in a hurry, and like when I was asking the question, that I didn't check the typos here, so y'all excuse my typos here. So y'all have to sit through the painful. I kind of rushed the question here, right? So, but anyway, I asked. It does seem like suspicious behavior. Wait. It says some people claim that it is God dwelling in the tents of Shem using certain translations, not Shem contradicting Japheth's dwelling in there. It does seem like suspicious behavior of the translators. Patah means deceive, entice, persuade 28 times in the Bible, right? Patah only meaning enlarge only once. Like, likely could white supremacists be hiding something? Is there documentation out there that hint at something more here? Like, that there was more that happened between Japheth and Ham? And it says, and it answered me, it says, you've raised several good and important questions. Here's a breakdown of what scholars say about these issues, including how the verse is translated, how it has been interpreted historically, and what textual or extra-textual issues remain unresolved. Meaning of the Hebrew word patah and translation issues. The Hebrew verb patah is used in various places in the OT, in the origin, in the OT, with meanings such as to entice, to persuade, to deceive, For example, in Exodus 22:16, entice, a virgin rather than always enlarge. In the KJV, major English translations of Genesis 9:27, it is translated, God shall enlarge Japheth. For instance, the commentary on this verse says the word in the Hebrew Yaph is employed on account of its resemblance in sound to the name of Japheth. The blessing means, may God extend the rule of Japheth. Okay. A scholarly article in contextual consideration of Genesis 9:27 notes that the verse has been the subject of some varied translation, interpretation, and speculation. So yes, the verb patah does not inherently only mean enlarge. In Hebrew, the translation choice to render it as enlarge is interpretive and connected to tradition of prophetic blessing. Some commentators even suggests reading God shall persuade patah Japheth rather than enlarge to emphasize conversion of Gentiles dwelling with the tents of Shem. See Gill's commentary, God shall persuade Japheth, and then being so persuaded he shall dwell in the tents of Shem, in reference to Gentile conversion. The ambiguity of he shall dwell in the tents of Shem. Who is the he? Also arises in the Hebrew, whether he refers to God dwelling with Shem or to Japheth dwelling among with Shem. Some argue the latter is more natural. So yes, there is legitimate scholarly discussion about the translation of patah here, and of the choice of enlarge is not forced by Hebrew alone. There is room for alternate senses. So, the fact that they discuss this, I guess that is lends what I'm trying to say here to my point here, that there is something going on here. Like, this does seems like to be a bit of shady business going on here. Historical misuse and white supremacist interpretations. It is documented that the verse has been used in white supremacist and Christian nationalist ideologies. For example, the basic definition of Christian nationalism: a religious doctrine that arises out of profoundly racist reading of the Christian Bible. The doctrine of the curse of Ham and the enlargement of Japheth. The verse Genesis 9:27 has been cited by some to claim white European dominance. The Wikipedia article on the curse of Ham explains that the blessing of Japheth and the curse of Canaan were historically interpreted in racialized ways, e.g. sons of Japheth equals European, sons of Ham equals Africans, though these interpretations are not supported by mainstream biblical scholarship. Yeah, because they don't want to make it look like it's racist. So, but there is scholarly research on how white supremacist groups use these genealogies in text. See e.g. Behind Doors of White Supremacy by C.K. Keenan. So yes, there is documentation that this verse has been co-opted into racist ideology. That doesn't mean the verse was originally intended that way, but the ideology overlay is real and well attested. Question about God dwelling in the tents of Shem versus Japheth dwelling in the tents of Shem. Some interpreters propose that the clause and he shall dwell in the tents of Shem could refer to God dwelling in Shem's tent. God's dwelling among the descendants of Shem, Israel, rather than Japheth dwelling among Shem. For example, some Jewish mystical readings and some Christian readings interpret it as God's presence dwelling with Shem's posterity. See Gil, some understand this of God himself. He shall dwell in the tents of Shem in Genesis 9:27 commentary. Others argue that it more naturally refers to Japheth himself dwelling in the tents of Shem, since the preceding clause blesses Japheth. For example, a study light commentary says, we regard Japheth as the subject of this sentence. This form of expression does not indicate a direct a direct invasion. It rather implies that this dwelling together would be a benefit to Japheth and no injury to Shem. So this is interpretive ambiguity. The Hebrew grammar might support either understanding, and translator's decisions reflect theological choices. It says, Former 4 says, was there more that happened between Japheth and Ham? On that question, the text of Genesis does not give any explicit account in this chapter of a specific event between Japheth and Ham, unlike the earlier event between Ham and Noah in Genesis 10 and Genesis 9:20 to 25. Instead, the verses 25 through 27 present Noah's prophecy, blessing and curse. Curse on Canaan's Ham line, blessing on Shem, blessing on Japheth. Some commentators note that the dwell in the tents of Shem might imply some historical dynasty relationship between Japheth's descendants and Shem's descendants, or even domination of Japheth over Shem in world history. For example, Gill's commentary claims inhabitant, the countries belonging to posterity of Shem. This was verified by the Medes, Greeks and Romans who sprung from Japheth when they made conquests in Asia, in which were the tents of Shem's posterity. But these are post hoc historical interpretations, extrapolations, not textual evidence of a specific interpersonal event between Ham and Japheth beyond what's recorded. A scholarly article, a contextual consideration of Genesis 9:27, examines the verse's context in Pentateuch and suggests it has messianic or typological implications rather than simply what happened between Ham and Japheth. So if you're asking, is there a hidden textual event or extra biblical documentation that something more happened between Japheth and Ham that the translators are hiding, the answer is not convincingly. There is no widely accepted extra biblical source that says Japheth attacked Ham or Japheth deceived Ham, etc. in connection with this verse. There is simply the prophetic bless motif. My assessment: you are correct to be suspicious of certain translation choices, like e.g. enlarge for patah, or he shall dwell. Who is he? Translation inevitable involves interpretive decisions. At the same time, I don't see strong evidence that the translators were uniformly hiding something conspiratorial, at least within mainstream scholarship. Rather, they were operating within a tradition of how that verse has been understood: blessing of Japheth, blessing of Shem, curse of Cain, and making translation choices accordingly. However, you are right to flag the fact that some groups have used the verse for ideological ends: white supremacy, Christian nationalism. That historic misuse means we should approach the verse with awareness of both the textual ambiguity and the interpretive baggage. If you want, I can check the ancient Jewish sources, Tangrel's Modernism, and early Christian translations, like Syriac, to see how they handle patah and dwell in the tents of Shem, and whether any of them hint at a different event or meaning. I said, would you like me to look up these ancient source translations and extra biblical commentaries for you? And I said, that's when I told the AI yes. It says, good question. I found some relevant ancient Jewish and early Christian source translations and commentary for Genesis 9:27 that shed light on how early readers handled the verse, though none seem to provide definition hidden event evidence between Japheth and Ham. There's a summary of what I found. It says ancient / Aramaic translations and Targums. Targum Jonathan on Genesis 9:27 renders the verse with somewhat different nuance. It says, the Lord shall beauty the borders of Japheth, and his son shall proselyte and dwell in the schools of Shem, and Canaan shall be servant to him. So in this version, beautify the borders of Japheth instead of simply enlarge. His God shall dwell in the schools of Shem rather than tents, which emphasize instruction, association rather than territory. It all introduces proselyte, i.e., conversion of Japheth's sons. Some Jewish sources, as reported by Christian commentators, interpret the Aramaic tents of Shem as tabernacles of Shem, meaning God's presence dwelling with Shem's line. For example, a source says he shall make his Shekinah to dwell in the tabernacles of Shem. Commentaries note that the Tagrams and Medarashim, the focus is more mystical / spiritual conversion of Gentiles, God's presence rather than strictly a territorial ethical prophecy. Early Greek translation, Septuagint, I did not find a reliable variant in the Septuagint for verse 927 that clearly shifts the meaning from Japheth to God as the subject of dwelling in the tents of Shem. I think that's how you just say LXX edition. I found lists the verse in the Hebrew sequence context, but I couldn't locate a translation here of the exact verse with a significant alternate subject. Because of this, the LXX appears to preserve the Hebrew subject ambiguity, or leaves it implicit rather than clarifying it as a translation that I located. Commentary, interpretation, and rabbinic Christian sources. Many Christians' commentary sites note that early Jewish tradition via the Targums read the clause, and he shall dwell in the tents of Shem, as God dwelling in Shem's tents, not Japheth. For example, some understand this of God himself, he shall dwell in the tents of Shem, as Jarachi quoted in Gill's exposition. Also, the wider context, the curse on Canaan, descendants of Ham, and the blessings for Shem and Japheth have been historically interpreted in many ways, including ethnic, spiritual, eschatological. Still, none of the sources I surveyed identify a specific event between Japheth and Ham that's simply hidden by translators. Rather than the focus is on interpretive possibilities of the blessings. The commentary highlights that translation choices such as enlarge for Hebrew patah are interpretive. The word in the Hebrew Yaph is employed on account of its resemblance in the sound of the name of Japheth, but just because this is where I'm kind of weirded out though. Just because the word sounds like it, and should that mean that it is it? Like, why would you say, oh, it sounds like it, so you just put it like that? Like, I don't know. To me, that seems really shady. The commentary highlights that translation choices such as okay, it says one site notes that the Targums understand this as a mystical sense, and that there is the reading, God shall cause his Shanach to dwell in the tents of Shem. Summary. What this means for your question: yes, there is documentation of alternative translation interpretation, especially in Targums, that treat the dwelling in the Shem clause differently. Sometimes with God as the subject, sometimes with Japheth as the subject, but converted, proselyte, or with an ecclesiastical meaning. There is not, in the sources I found, strong evidence of an extra biblical hidden event between Japheth in Ham underlying the verse, i.e., no mainstream ancient text saying Japheth deceived Ham in connection with this verse. Okay, it says the ambiguity in Hebrew. Who does he refer to? And the translation of Patah open up legitimate possibilities of different theological interpretive emphasis. And yes, that leaves room for modern mistranslations or ideological misuse. So your suspicion is understandable. It's important to note many interpretations, especially those reading God's dwelling, lean into spiritual Christian eschatological fulfillment, Gentile conversion, rather than strictly historical tribal prophecy. I said on an average, this is what I asked it a question right here. I think this is a lot of substance. And this answered a huge question that I had on my mind. Right? And I could probably use this through a debate and during the Esau is the white man debate, which I don't believe. I believe Esau is Saudi Arabia, or lapping over with Jordan a bit, But a lot of the Israelite camps believe Esau to be the white man, like, which I believe that's biblically impossible. But I don't want to get off subject here. But here's the question I asked it right here. I said, on an average of all of the different translations of Genesis 9:27, which averages out the most? God shall dwell in the tents of Shem, or Japheth shall dwell in the tents of Shem? It says, excellent question. And it's one that biblical linguists and textual historians have analyzed closely. Here's a clear summary of the data and reasoning. What the Hebrew text literally says. It says, the Masoretic Hebrew of Genesis 9:27 reads, Japheth Elohim le Japheth v'shakan. I'm sorry, I can't speak Hebrew, but I'll do my best. Be Hashem. It's like Hashem via Canaan and then Ev Lamo. Grammatically, the pronoun is Vishalekon. And he, it says, and he, I guess that's the V shall dwell most naturally, refers back to the nearest subject, which is Japheth, Japhet, not God. So it's Japheth, not God. Says that's why the majority of translators, both ancient and modern, read it as Japheth shall dwell in the tents of Shem. Translation statistic. Who is the subject of dwell? Major English Bibles: KJV, NIV, ESV, NLT, NRSV, NASB, CASB. Reads as Japheth shall dwell. Yes, 95%. Reads as God shall dwell. 5%. So only 5% says that God shall dwell. So for all of them Israelite camps out there that be debating me, a majority of the translators, all these scholars, they say it read 95% of them agree that it means Japheth shall dwell, compared to 5%. Virtually all modern and early English Bibles favor Japheth. Okay. Subsequent Greek, yes. Uses Greek third person, masculine singular verb following Japheth. Vulgate, Latin. Japheth shall dwell, yes. It says for the reads God shall dwell, no. Habitat, he shall dwell in the tents of Shem. I gotta quit trying to read the different language. Okay, it says Targum Onkelos. And that's reads as Japheth shall dwell as yes. This Vulgate Latin reads as God shall dwell. He shall dwell in the tents of Shem. I already said Targumacums. Possible, ambiguous, possible God, ambiguous, Japheth. Interpreted Shinkai, God's presence is dwelling with Shem. Targum Jonathan Jerusalem, God's God dwelling with Shem. God caused his Shekinah to dwell in the tents of Shem. Rabbinic Christian commentaries. Majority Japheth. Minority God. With the they believe in God shall dwell. A few Rashi Gil acknowledges both readings of as possible. So roughly, it says in short. So basically, it says roughly in short, 90-95% of translation and textual witnesses favor Japheth shall dwell in the tents of Shem. Only 5-10%, mostly Targum or mystical readings, say God shall dwell. Why this difference exists? Grammatical basis. The Hebrew syntax links the verb vishayakan most naturally to Japheth, not God. So translators default to that reading. Theological tradition, early Jewish Aramaic interpreters, targums, often inserted Shekiah wordplay. The verse plays on Japheth's name, Japheth. So, keeping left some verses. The verses plays on Japheth's name, Japheth. So keeping him as the subject preserves the poetic cemetery of may God enlarge Japheth. Interpretive motive, Christian and mystics sometimes preferred God shall dwell because it fits covenant messianic themes. God dwelling among Shem's descendants. Average consensus: may God enlarge Japheth and let him dwell in the tents of Shem. May God enlarge Japheth. Okay. So, and it's 5-10% is may God enlarge Japheth, and may God dwell in the tents of Shem. But most common rendering, may God enlarge Japheth and let him dwell in the tents of Shem. Okay, so I'm gonna pick the majority over the minority. Okay, that's just how I'm going when I'm arguing, when I'm debating people. Line this up with biblical verses. A bastard shall dwell in Ashdod. Hold up, let me see. I'm gonna see something here. Oh, that's when I broke it. Oh, I forgot. I did actually break the Chat GPT AI 3 times. Before. I forgot. I mean, I only broke it twice, but I thought I needed to break it a third time, and I already did break it a third time right here. Okay. I think. Man. I don't know. I think I might have got this confused with my other Japheth question. Um. In diaspora, historical experience resembles many Deuteronomy 28 motive, though Deuteronomy was originally written for ancient Israel. Many. Okay, let's see. Sorry, y'all. Might have to search through my chats here. I want to see more of the questions I asked about Japheth. Okay, let's search the chat right quick. Excuse me. Let me see. Hmm. I remember I had found some documentation about Japheth. I can't remember which chat it was in. I had found some documentation about that there were it looked like there was more to it. Like there was something there was more to it. What happened between Japheth and Ham? I'm trying to find it though. I'm having trouble with that. Let me see. I might have to go ahead and end the stream and try to get back with y'all later. I definitely want to. Oops. It's one, two. Yeah, I apologize. I shouldn't just be assuming stuff. Thinking that was it. I should make sure that have everything. Let's see. You know what? I'm I definitely want to get back to this to do a part two, but I think I'm just gonna go ahead and end the stream. And so I can sort this out. So I apologize, but I want to get back to this and look through my, and maybe I can stream this maybe even tomorrow, probably, if God willing. But yeah, proposed. Hold up, let me see. Maybe I can find it here. Oh man. Palestinians. Let's see. Enemy. Okay, let's see. Let's see. Okay. It was. All right. All right. I'm gonna go ahead and end the stream. Hopefully, I think I'll have it the answer in part two. Um, I wish I could find it right now, but apparently I'm having trouble. But I'll get back to you guys. Appreciate you guys watching. Just remember to live every day in victory, and of course, coming to victory music, victory fanfare. Till next time, dudes and dudettes, and we are out.